Today's guest on 98 Out is another writer. Matt Appleby joins me. He's written a few books, actually, but I thought we'd get him along and just find out what's what. Matt, how are you, sir?
I'm great. Thanks for having me on, Darren. It's brilliant to be here.
Now, you are a cricket fan and a cricket writer. In fact, you've even written a book, I believe, called How to Be a Cricket Fan. Is that right?
I did. I had a book out in 2023 called How to Be a Cricket Fan, which I think is the first ever biography of a cricket fan, which was actually my dad, and I inherited all his old cricket stuff when he died, and I spent 7 years writing about it. 50 chapters, one chapter for each piece of memorabilia with a story attached. And yeah, that came out last year and it did pretty well. And yeah, I've been boasting about how the cricketer said it was the seventh best cricket book of the year, which
Wow.
you can't beat. You can't beat that. Well, you can beat that, but Wisdom was number one.
Yeah, I mean, as I found out with this thing, that you're always going to be up against the big boys, but I mean, a top 10 finish is still pretty good. That's an interesting point you raise about sort of taking over from your dad's interest in cricket. That seems to be quite a common thing. And certainly from my own experience, my love of cricket came from my dad, and as a very young boy, sort of lying on the living room floor with the curtains drawn, watching cricket on telly, and and I've passed my love of the game on to my son as well. It seems to be a very, very common thing.
No, you're right. I mean, I sort of coach a bit of cricket and coach a bit of rugby. But most kids just want to play football, but it's their dads that get them into cricket. And my dad got me into cricket as a young age, and I'm getting my kids in, and I mean they love it. But I'm not sure if they'd do it without the sort of dad saying, this is a great game.
Yeah, and cricket and rugby tend to go hand in hand as well.
They do. You're right. You're right. Yeah, but I'm looking forward to the cricket season starting. It's long overdue.
Yeah, it's not far, less than a couple of weeks now. And I think there seems to be, I don't know why, but this year there seems to be this heightened excitement for I don't know if it's because there are clouds looming on the horizon for the county game, and people are kind of galvanizing themselves into doing what they can to save the game that they love. But people are getting very, very excited. And every time the clouds part and a bit of warm sunshine comes through, you just sort of feel the pulse quickening a little bit.
No, I'm definitely seeing so much love for the county game out there, and there's people all over social media saying the county game really matters. Let's save it. There's obviously threats from international games and the 100, but yeah, the county game really, really does matter, and you can tell that on social media that so many people love it, and I long may it continue.
Yeah. So, what's this new book that you've got? Tell me about that.
Ah, well, this is Lost Cricket Stickers, which is a kind of homage to the 1983 cricket season, and it's based on the Panini sticker album from 1983. So everybody knows about the football sticker albums, which every kid collected and still does. Well, in 1983, they did a cricket one, and it was a one-off, and I collected it, and I've still got it, and I found it in the attic when I was writing the first book, and I just remembered it, and I just thought a lot of other people will remember it, and there's a lot of nostalgia out there for 1983 when Essex won the championship and Somerset were great, and we had Botham, we had there was so many big international stars in the game like Viv Richards, who had the World Cup which India won. It's a real pivotal year, so I thought I'm going to go and find a guy from each county plus a load of other people and tell the story of 1983 and the difference between then and now and what it all means.
Did you collect every single sticker in the album?
I did collect every sticker, and you couldn't swap them in the playground because no
Oh,
one else collected them in my playground in Carlisle. And no, it wasn't like the football. But yeah, I think my dad probably helped me because he wanted to fill the album. I mean, that's the thing about these sticker albums. The dads like them too.
I can remember doing a football one. It must have been probably 1976, 77, something like that. And
Yeah.
Mick Channon was the one that I was missing, and I couldn't find it or swap it with anyone for love nor money. And then I think when I'd just about given up hope, I went and spent my last 10p on a pack of stickers, and there he was.
Yeah.
And that was like winning the World Cup for me, getting that final sticker to complete the album.
Oh, that's what it was. Just 10p, and you can still remember the smell and the got, and that's a swap, and then it's like you finally find the one which fills that gap. And there's a guy in Essex, Greg Lansdowne, who's a real expert on all this, who's given me a bit of help with this, and he's done a lot of work on all this type of stuff, but. Yeah, no one's really delved into this cricket sticker album. I don't think anybody ever thought it was that important, but there's so many people coming out of the woodwork and saying to me, I collected that one. And I was thinking, God, I wish I'd known you at the time.
Why was it only a one-off? Why didn't they continue it?
It just didn't sell. They did another one in 1995, but yeah, it just didn't sell. Like the football one, every kid, but yeah, the cricket one, obviously not every kid. It was a bit specialist.
We need to go on a mission. Well, let's make this a crusade to get an up-to-date one and keep it going. And I'm sure these days with the years that you're talking about, even 1995, there wasn't any social media or internet or anything as such. I'm sure now that if you got behind it and got some of the prolific Twitters or X's or whatever you call them that would do this, I'm sure it could be resurrected.
Yeah. Yeah, you're not wrong. Looking at the guys on the front here, it's just so nostalgic. We've got Peter Such, aged 18. People say he looks about 12. We've got Mike Selvey, Tim Curtis, John Barkley, Chris Cowdrey, Kevin Emery. There's people have forgotten. And on the back, I've got Embry, I've got David Ackfield from Essex, I've got Nick Cook. Like there's people who had great years then and forgotten about now. And I wanted to do stories which hadn't been told quite so much. There's big names in there. There's Boycott, there's Braley, but there's also names that people really have forgotten who haven't spoken for 40 years. And it was great talking to them because a lot of them are reaching sort of retirement age. They're keen to reflect. And they've got a really good perspective on how things were then, but they still love the game now. So they've got a good perspective on the differences for better or for worse.
It's quite an interesting time because, as you say, there are people that were in the sort of twilight of their career, but it was also people that went on to be big stars of the game that were just sort of young. So like you say, Peter Such on there as a very young. I don't think I've ever seen a picture of him from those days because his career sort of blossomed later on. So what else? What else is in the book that we can look forward to reading?
Well, it's interesting looking at, say, Such, right? Back then he was at Notts, but he went on to play for Leicestershire and he played for Essex. In those days, people didn't really change counties like they do now. There was no loan system. People played a hell of a lot of games every year. Like Bob Willis played more than 40 games in 1983. He was the fast bowler, age 32, England's premier fast bowler, 90 miles an hour. Mark Wood, in 2023, 40 years later, when I wrote the book, played 4 games. 32 years old, England's 90-mile-an-hour fast bowler. And it's all about contracts. There weren't contracts then. So a massive difference. So these guys said, if I had a contract then, I wouldn't have got injured. I would have had a much longer, better career. I might have been brilliant at 2020. I might have gone to the IPL. Things could have been completely different. But as it was, they had the county game, they had the test game, and that's what it was. And, very few of them have got any regrets, but they've all got a good perspective.
It was a different world, really, wasn't it? Looking back in some ways, it doesn't seem that long ago. And in other ways, you think, blimey, it's more than 40 years ago now. But just to look at cricket in itself, I was talking to someone the other day about in those days, when you pulled up a ground to go watch a game, there'd be a row of cars in the car park, which might say, Graham Gooch is sponsored by Toyota Chelmsford, written huge down the side of the car. And that would be all the players. It was almost like a massive perk of the job was to get these cars. But could you imagine in this day and age driving around with something emblazoning who you are and what you're doing?
They just wouldn't do that now, would they? They still get the sponsored cars, but they don't have the name on the side because who wants to have that on the side of your car as you drive through town? But I used to love it, standing in the car park trying to get their autographs. And even better than that, sometimes they'd say, you can only have my autograph if you carry my bag, that's Jeffrey Boycott. So, but that's better for a kid, isn't it? So you carry your bag, you go into the dressing room, you smell the liniment. It's like all these players putting bandages on. None of them say hello to Boycott, obviously, and but for a kid, that memory's still there 40 years later.
Yeah, innocent times, really, innocent times. So just remind me what the book's called.
It's called It's called Lost Cricket Stickers in Search of 1983's World of Cricket Sticker Album Heroes. And I've got a forward by Jim Carter, who's the butler out of Downton Abbey.
Yeah.
I'm not quite sure how that happened, but he's a massive cricket fan, and I met him and I said, "Do you remember this year?" And he said, "I'll do you a favour. I'll write the forward." And yeah, I just spent the whole year last year going round county grounds and various other places seeking out these guys because I didn't know any of them beforehand, and I didn't really know how to get hold of any of them. And a lot of them aren't on social media, but I found one or two on social media, and they were keen to do it, and then one led to another, and I went off to the Cheltenham Festival and bumped into a few guys because they have an old players day there. So I had a great year. I had a great time writing it. I hope people have a nice time reading it, but the main thing is I had a great time writing it.
I think also cricket fans, by and large, tend to be if you've got dirt under your fingernails in the game, it's along the lines. And I go to Chelmsford a lot and sit and watch and take in the sort of what's going on around me. Not so much well on the field, but also off the field and the characters and the type of people that are there. And there's this very much with cricket, you get people that want to, like you said, collect autographs, collect photos, selfies these days, and just any kind of statistical analysis. And I would imagine that the sort of collecting stickers would sort of fall into that obsession with detail and statistics and data and just, having the full set. Because I can remember sitting there being amazed at two elder gentlemen just sort of almost playfully arguing with each other about who had the more signed photographs from players as they were waiting for the two counties to sort of come off the pitch for tea and were ready to sort of grab the autographs they were missing. So I guess stickers, kind of just collecting stickers, falls into that category.
Yeah, it was a great history of it. Like my dad got into cricket in 1938 when he collected cigarette cards. Everyone smoked back then.
Oh
So he
yeah.
got given and they're colourful watercolours of pictures of players from 38, including the Australian tours of 38, Bradman, all that lot, Hammond, you name them. And but years later, he kept them, but he collected them again. So he's got a full set of autographed ones from then, which I've got now. 1938, it's just amazing. I'd like to get my album autographed with all the guys in it, but that's the next step. But I mean, looking at 1983, right? It's a big year, right? People don't realize, but India won the World Cup. They were massive underdogs, 50-1 outsiders to beat West Indies in the final at Lords. They won. Kapil Dev was captain. And then basically that was the start of the transfer of power from Lords to India. And we see that now. Got IPL on the background in my front room here. The most lucrative tournament in the world. And 1983, wasn't it? No one even could get a county contract, hardly. It was absolutely the opposite end of the spectrum in terms of India. Now the world has turned.
Yeah, I remember 1983. How the world has turned. Would you see a World Cup quarter final at Chelmsford these days? Because you did in '83, and it was India against Australia.
Yeah, well, I interviewed Roger Binney, who was professional for Carlisle in 1982, won the World Cup in 1983. That's how big things got for him. Chelmsford, funny you should mention Chelmsford, 14 not out happened in 1983, which was the worst score. Well, it was the worst score of the century, basically. And it was Surrey who scored 14 not out. And I interviewed this guy, Graham Monkhouse, who played for Surrey. And he got two, which if everyone had got two, they would have got a bit more than 14. But he was giving out LBW. It was Norbert Phillip I think got him LBW, and Neil Foster got the other four wickets. Monkhouse told me he didn't think he was LBW, but then again he says no never does, do they?
Wasn't another interesting stat about that innings of 14 all out? I can't remember who it was batting at the end, at the tail. Edged two shots for four, and if he hadn't have done that, it would have been single figures all out.
Oh, you're right, Darren. I mean, the famous story is Sylvester Clarke was in the bath because he'd done his bowling. All Surrey had to do was bat out an hour at the end of the day's play. So he was in the bath, and someone came in and said, "Silvers, get out of the bath. You're in." So he ran out into the pitch with no socks on, covered in soap, and he slogged a four, then got out next ball, I think. But yeah, because I think they were 8 for 8.
Incredible. Mind you, it wasn't that long ago that Essex were all out for 20 over at Chelmsford. Probably about 10 years ago, I think that was. But yeah, we'll save that story for another time. So away from cricket, you're a keen horticulturalist as well.
I am, yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm on the other side of the fence here because we do a podcast at Hort Week, which is a magazine I edit, where we interview gardeners. So yeah, yeah, I've been out in the garden today, and I once wrote a piece for Wisden about cricket and gardening. It's the only piece ever in Wisden about cricket and gardening. Probably the only ever piece that ever will be. So I'm very proud of that, and you can't take that away from me.
Well, most batters, when they're out in the middle, are gardening at the crease and down the wicket and, flattening out any imperfections.
There is. I mean, there's so many analogies, and a groundsman is basically a gardener, and the groundsman basically holds a lot of the cards. But if you look at Lord, you've got the Harris Garden. There's gardens all around a lot of clubs, and look at the tree at Canterbury that used to be there,
Yeah.
for instance. There's a lot of links there, and I think I found them all. Maybe there's a follow-up article for Wisdom, but I don't think. I think it's all been said.
Do you have also, to be a good groundsman, do you have to be a grumpy old git as well?
I've met a few grumpy groundsmen. Yeah, I mean that yeah, I think it's because they spend a bit of time on their own with their sort of earphones on so they don't get deafened and just thinking about get off my pitch, stop walking on it, stop making a mess of it. But groundsman a crucial job and a very
Absolutely.
skilled job. People don't realise outside the game just how skilled and important it is, and how much more scientific the job's got in recent years.
Yeah, yeah. You got to be a weather watcher. You got to be a soil specialist, and all kinds, all kinds. Matt, it's been absolutely fantastic talking to you. One last time, let's plug this book because I want you to sell loads, and I want to, going forward, I want to resurrect. And we're going to put pressure on Panini to resurrect the cricket sticker album.
Yeah, it's Lost Cricket Stickers in Search of 1983 World of Cricket Sticker Album Heroes. And in it, I interview about 25 people from back in the day. I even interview Enid Bakewell, one of the women who was involved in 1983 cricket, even though there were no internationals in 1983. That's another massive change for the women. So, yeah, it's all about how things were then compared to how things are now. It's a bit of nostalgia, but there's a few lessons which maybe we can pick up on the way.
Well, I want a copy. Is it out now?
Out this March, yeah, it's out now, yeah.
Fantastic. Well, we shall. I shall put a link on the bio to make sure everyone puts their hands in their pockets and gets a couple of quid together. And yes, we shall start. I know I'm already thinking of a few people I can get on board to get this whole thing going again because it does sound fantastic. Brilliant to chat, Matt. Many thanks for joining me, and look forward to catching up in the near future.
Brilliant. Thanks, Darren.